Hello. Good to be there. And when organized called me to invite me to give a speech, I said yes, of course I will come and give a speech, and on what topic, and like open educational resources, how we did it in Poland, about either the internet library my foundation is running, or something, or on licenses. And they said no, it's a keynote speech. Keynote speech. So it's like, okay, so I'm actually allowed to talk what matters to me, not you. And so it was fine. But then they told me that I got like 1 hour and a half, and it was like reflection. 1 hour and a half. I probably don't have that much interesting things, to say. But hopefully organizers shaved it down to 1 hour and 7 minutes, so we will be fine. But also keynote speech, it's like one directional form of communication. I don't really like it. I don't like presentations as well. Presentations kill the dialogue. If I have a presentation, I cannot engage in a discussion with audience, right? Because I need to follow the presentation. This is horrible. Let's send all the presentations to hell. I would like so I would like to give a keynote debate, not a keynote presentation. And I welcome you to engage with me and boo me and discuss me and so on. And when I was thinking about what should be the title of this keynote, I thought, okay, there is a feeling I have like all the time for the past 10 years when I'm working with free educational resources. It's the feeling that I'm part of something bigger, always part of something bigger. So. And I told the organizers that the title should be "We are always part of something bigger," but obviously this didn't get through, and in the program it's just keynote. Well, first of all, I would like to ask you why you are here. Why you are here working on open educational resources, free educational resources? What's the basic belief we have? Is it that open educational resources make cheaper, more accessible educational materials? Is it that? Raise your hands if you think this is the most important reason. One, okay. So 2. So do you think that it is because you believe in a system where teachers choose their educational materials freely? Is it that the main reason you are here? No one. Or maybe that's because you think that the less structurized, bottom-up educational system is much better than the one we got from 19th century, the Prussian school. Is it that? Okay, some of you. And do you think that the ability to adapt and translate resources is like a killer feature? Is it that? One person. Okay. Who didn't raise hand? Okay, I would like to hear from you.
For me, it's a vision of a universal higher education that's free and of quality.
Okay, another person. One sentence each.
I think that education is a right, and one of the only ways globally can help to make that come about for absolutely everyone is through use of these texts.
Perfect. Someone else. There were much more hands.
The capillarity that you get with open education improves the life of people, and that's it.
Okay. Like everyone who wanted to said. Okay. So I'm here because I believe that knowledge, the information, should not be private property, and I believe in a free flow of the information, and probably I believe in a free speech, and I think that making information a product was one of the worst developments of our civilization, and so let me tell you my story, because probably I'm very unusual for a keynote speaker. You got a keynote speaker you never heard of, right? So I'm with the Open Educational Resources movement for 10 years now, and but it all began much earlier. It began in mid-90s probably for me, when I became a poet. And so you know when you are young and you write poetry, and you always, and there is like imperative in a Western culture that art should be original. I mean, we got it from the Renaissance, basically. The art, I mean, and we value art only if it's original. The originality is the way we weight the art, and if it's original, it's good. If it's not, it's bad. That's the only only way we value art. So I wanted to be original, and I developed a style which later we called neolinguism, which was obviously a poetry very heavily being constructed on a language level. I mean, playing with words, with meanings, and a lot of reuse of others people's work. We had a small group of poets. We published manifesto, and we were moderately successful in that. My basic experience as a poet was that I basically grab whatever I want, and add different meanings and push it to back to the world. And I also became journalist, because you cannot, as a poet, you cannot really make a living out of it. So you need to get a real job, and my real job was journalism. So I was involved in, I was writing book reviews for like 10 years. But I was also very fond of computers, and because no one there was like internet bubble, so I got hired to the web magazine, one of the very first ones in Poland, and so wow, this internet, it's really interesting. So I began to read on internet, and so what are the interesting people which are talking about internet, what it is and how it works? Those interesting people, there was a group of people sitting in Internet Society Poland. There was just one organization back then, which like civic organization, which was taking interest in internet. That was Internet Society Poland. So I quickly became a member of the Internet Society, and there was an accident, I would say. Yeah, because the invitation came from United States for a conference to Internet Society in Poland, and just like 3 days before the conference, the person who was assigned, to go and represent Internet Society had some family problems or something, and he couldn't go. So there was like a email. Okay, who can get an American visa in 1 day? And that was like a big problem in Poland. The year was 2004, I believe, and I was a journalist. Journalists get a fast track in embassy. So I said, okay, I can go probably. I take a cab. I go to the embassy. I got the visa in 1 day, and I was flown to United States, out of nowhere, and so there was a conference, and there was the keynote speaker of the conference was Ibn Moglen. Do you know Ibn Moglen? Who knows the name? One person, Ibn Moglen. we'll be talking more on Ibn Moglen today. So, Ibn Moglen is a lawyer for Free Software Foundation. Free Software Foundation was fighting for, I mean, now it's like more than 30 years for free software on computers, and their mission is to get people, to give people control over machines they use to communicate with other people, because if we don't have the control of the machine, then we are doomed, basically, because someone else decides which messages go through, am I being monitored and censored, and so on and so on and so on. Very important thing. Free software is a big thing. So the year is 2004 or something, or maybe 2005, and Ibn Moglen says, okay, the war for free software is won. We did it. So back then it was shocking. It was shocking information because Microsoft was, you know, was the biggest game in the forest, and the king of the jungle. Everyone feared Microsoft, and it's not a company like today, which is like moderately small, quite friendly company right now. And it seemed that the people will always use proprietary software on their computers. And Ibn Moglen says the fight for free software is over. We won, and he was right. We know that now because the web took over. The operating system doesn't really matter anyway. Most of us use free software on a daily basis. If it's not an operating system, probably it's most of the computer programs you use, either running on your computer or either software as service. I mean, it's the, you know, the so-called cloud, right? So, when he finished his talk, there were questions from the audience, and someone asked, "Okay, we won. So what's the next big thing?" And Ibn Moglen said, the next big thing is education. And for me, it was like, okay, now I know what's going to be a next big thing. Let's think about it, right? So I got back to Poland, and my mother is a school director. I mean, now she's retired, but she was a school director back then. So we sat together with a friend of mine, Władek Majewski from Internet Society Poland, and my mother, and we spent like endless hours discussing, okay, so we know what the free software is, we know what education is, can we apply the methods of free software development and free licenses to educational materials? And there was the idea of, okay, so let's start a project for, I don't know, let's call it free textbooks. Free textbook. So it was a long, hours talking with my wife, and I said, okay, honey, I'm going to quit my job as a journalist, well-paid job, when I do nothing, only read books and write reviews, and I will start a foundation which will give me no money at all. So you will support our family for the next 3 years. And she said, okay, you got 3 years to make the foundation up and running. If you don't make it in 3 years, you get the real job. So this is how Modern Poland Foundations started. Basically, it was subsidized by my wife, and we began working on a project called Free Textbooks, and there are some it was the year 2006. And I published an article in the newspapers about the idea of free textbooks and what we should do. And no one called. I mean, no Ministry of Education. I mean, it was a major newspaper. No Ministry of Education or something. But called me a guy from Soros Foundation from Budapest, and he said, "Okay, this is very interesting article. Just by accident, we are also discussing those things, and let's meet." So this is how we got initial support from the Open Society Foundation, and also this is how I got invited to Cape Town in September 2007 to draft Cape Town Declaration. Actually in Krakow there are now 2 people from which were the original drafting team. This is me and Delia Brown from Australia. She's probably sitting in the next next room. So I need my notes, you know. It's not that easy. So, you know, the free textbooks project was a disaster because there was only one free knowledge project back then, and the project was called Wikipedia. So we imagined that we can use the, you know, Wikipedia software and Wikipedia methodology of developing content and apply it to textbooks, which is obviously not true. And we learned that hard way, that you just cannot do this, that the textbooks textbooks are just too big to be effectively crowdsourced. You need an organization to write a textbook, and writing a textbook just has to be a full-time job. But there were other opportunities in 2009. There was a small project by Ministry of Education which was hugely important because it set precedent. And precedent is very important because once you have a precedent, you can go to, to policymakers and say, this was already done, let's do it again. It's completely different than saying, let's do something radically new, no one tried before, right? So the policymakers always try to be on the safe side. So there was a project for teaching Polish kids living abroad. In 2009, there was already a huge diaspora in United Kingdom and Ireland because all the people, went there for jobs, and close to 2 million people. So it was very urgent. We needed to do it quickly and now. And so there was me, and I said, okay, so I can participate in this project and take care of writing the textbook for teaching Polish language to Polish kids living abroad. And in like a crazy time, like half a year, we just did it. We wrote these textbooks in a team of 4 people, and we published that under free license on the Ministry of Education servers. So, and this set precedent. And in 2007, we also organized a coalition for open education in Poland. So in 2009, 2010, the coalition was well established. We were growing. We organized meetings, and we trained hundreds of people every year. It was crazy time. It was going, all over Poland, and with the message on how to apply free licenses to the educational content. And but it was, and we published a lot of position papers, and analyses and so on and so on. And Ministry of Education never called us, and and it was kind of frustrating. Okay, so it's like, it's 5 years now. I'm doing that for 5 years now, and no one is paying attention. Okay, we organized a group of people. It's not just me and my laptop. Okay, it's like a lot of people, and the policymakers just don't pay attention to us. We got solutions, like working solutions. We can prove it. So in 2011, I'm sitting and drinking coffee with a friend of mine, and the civic platform, the party which was ruling back then, just won the 2nd term in parliamentary elections, and the prime minister is going to give the most important speech as a new prime minister. I mean, obviously this is the 2nd term, that evening, and it's like 2 p.m. And a friend of mine is getting a phone call, and she says like, yes, something on education. Or just hang on. And she tells me, Jarek, the advisors for the prime minister just called me that he's furious that there is nothing on education in the speech draft. So you got like 5 minutes to give something on education. to the Prime Minister's speech. And it was exactly, I mean, as in the movies, you know, on napkin with a pencil, I wrote 4 sentences that we will run, you know, the national project for free textbooks, which will be free to everyone. And so I turned on TV that evening, and it's like all over. It's like there will be free textbooks, free as in zero, like costless for everyone, which is huge because in Poland it's parents to pay for textbooks for everyone. And my phone calls ringing, and this time it's Ministry of Education, because they are completely shocked. I mean, they send the ideas of improving this and, you know, like, and that, you know, like small changes. This is not what Prime Minister wants, never. I mean, the Prime Minister always wants, you know, big things for such a speech. So how we can do this? So the next 3 months, I spent in Prime Minister office drafting the project. I mean, it was 4 of us. It was just four people. It was me. I drafted the textbook part. Alicja Pacewicz drafted teachers training part. Witek Przeciechowski drafted infrastructure part, internet at schools, and Alek Tarkowski drafted evaluation and research part. So it was just 4 people. So it was completely rewritten by Minister of Education later on, but we got it. And as you know it, because we got it. The free textbooks, the open educational resources in Poland is done deal. It's done. It's not interesting anymore. It's, you know, now it's about, you know, helping little things, you know, improving there and, you know, pushing this. But it's done deal. So, but is it? Because it is in terms that kids, yes, they do have textbooks which are published under free license on the internet and they are accessible for free. But did we achieve our goals? And this is the part which makes me doubting, because most of the promises of free educational resources are in fact not really delivered. For example, 10 years ago, the teachers effectively had the ability to remix and reuse everything as they see fit, because the level of copyright enforcement was very low and the copyright was very flexible. Back then we got wonderful, very flexible educational exceptions. It's not the case anymore. We got a very strict copyright, which was amended like 3 times during those 10 years. The educational exceptions are not working anymore for internet. It was the change which was pushed just last year. And in the same time, we spent a lot of, you know, it was a lot of efforts to actually tell the teachers that copyright exists and they need to abide. And as a result, probably they have much less freedom than they had. So, because we are always part of something bigger, and this time we are just part of the copyright wars. This is what we are. This is what we do. We are taking part in the copyright wars. And if my job is to free the people from oppression, and believe this is what I was trying to achieve, to free the people from oppression of you know, the artificial monopolies on information. I'm not sure anymore that I have won. So let's talk about copyright. Let's talk about copyright. We are here because copyright makes it hard to disseminate knowledge. It makes it hard to use and reuse of materials, and it makes it hard to basically to do our job, right? This is why we are here. And if not copyright, we should. I mean, there would be no reason to meet and discuss this. We'd be meeting probably, you know, on technical conferences about, you know, technical solutions for schools. Yes, that would be, and universities. That would be. But we are here because basically we are trying to fix copyright in a way, or, you know, like patch copyright. So let's talk about copyright, because copyright basically is a great swindle. And the basic question, if we take a look at copyright, is who profits? Who profits, and why control of the information became the central problem of modern society. So copyright is a global system which regulates the trade of ideas and allows for the privatization. And there are two traditions in copyright. There's Anglo-Saxon tradition and continental tradition. The Anglo-Saxon tradition says that, which is like in United States and Great Britain, says that we need copyright for the progress of the useful arts. The copyright exists because we need to produce more works. That's the reason why copyright exists. In continental system, which stems from basically from the French Revolution, the idea is different. The idea is copyright exists because there is a unbreakable, invisible bond between author and the work he created. And the copyright is just the reflection of the existence of this mystical connection between an author and his work. So the Anglo-Saxon tradition is very pragmatic. The continental is less so, and the concept of the copyright is relatively new. I mean, the very first like modern copyright systems were created in France in the beginning of the 19th century. In Poland, the first copyright was introduced by Russian Tsar, because Russian Tsars were always, looking what's happening in France. France was, the cultural capital of the world back then. So, and they were, and the Tsars always like they were trying, to imitate that in a very peculiar Russian way, to imitate those advances. And so they saw, okay, this is this new concept of copyright. We need to introduce it. The year was 1828, I believe, or maybe a little bit later. And but the Tsar didn't know where to put it. And the only piece of legislation which seemed somewhat similar was the censorship laws. So at the beginning in Poland, the copyright was part of the censorship laws, which I think is very, very ironic. And the concept is very new. And I did some very, it's a keynote, so I can talk about what I like, right? So I did some very interesting research on, okay, do we have something about on copyright in Bible? In Bible, and so if you want, to look for such information, you are going to look at the Jewish tradition, because this is the tradition in which they analyze like every verse. And yes, there is something in the Bible. So the Jewish tradition doesn't know the concept of the copyright as an ownership of ideas, but they have a concept of of recognition of an author. It's very strong in Jewish tradition. In Jewish tradition, when say something, you always say as Rab Moshe ben Moses said, right? And because and do you know how Talmud looks? Do you know Talmud? Okay, do you know how the page of the Talmud looks? There is one sentence from the Torah. Then there is Mishnah, which is like an early commentary to the Torah. Then there is Gemara, which is an early commentary to the Mishnah. Then there are commentaries of the fathers, and then there are commentaries to commentaries to commentaries of the commentaries. Right? This is the Talmud. So Mishnah says whoever. It's very early. It's like it's the beginning of the it's the year 300. So Mishnah says, whoever shares the knowledge with the world, with the people, in the name of an author, saves the world. This is what Mishnah says. So there's a concept that sharing the knowledge is saving the world, but only if you do it in the name of an author. This is wonderful. This is beautiful, right? But this is commentary in Mishnah. So my question was, okay, what's the passage? I mean, they got it from the Torah, right? So what's exactly the text and the text is found in a book of Esther, and the quotation is, and the Queen Esther talked to the King Mordecai to the King Ahasuerus in the name of the Mordecai. And Queen Esther talked to King Ahasuerus in the name of the Mordecai. Okay, what's the context? I mean, it doesn't make sense. What's the context? So obviously there was like a plot to kill King Ahasuerus by two royal eunuchs, and Mordecai somehow figured that out. And he told the queen, and the queen got to the king and told him that there is a plot to kill him, and she told that in the name of the Mordecai. So she didn't pretend that it was her, how to say that in English? Odkryć, wykryć. Discover this plot. I mean, she gave the proper, credits. The proper authorship recognition, and the king killed those two eunuchs. So I think it's also interesting to that the only story loosely connected to copyright in the Bible we have is about killing two eunuchs. So that was let's get back to the main topic. So the copyright is important because information is not a thing. It's immaterial. So if we want to trade information, we cannot do this without the state. The state and the police and the courts, we need a monopoly system to enforce the trade of the information. In the old times, like when we've been trading the like physical things, it was very easy, right? You get to the bazaar and you buy something for information you need the state. You cannot have intellectual monopoly without the state. Why? Because the information can be replicated basically with zero marginal cost. The information may be replicated for free. The books have been the first mass-produced good, right? It's not it's not Fort T. It's the book to be to be mass-produced, and they've been very cheap, in fact, and so the source of the value is the scarcity. So you need to create an artificial scarcity to create a value, and this is exactly what copyright is doing. It's artificial. It's made up, So the copyright is intellectual monopoly, but we don't use this phrase when we talk about copyright. We don't say, intellectual monopoly anymore. We've been talking like that on copyright in 19th century. Even at the beginning of the 20th century, we've been calling copyright intellectual monopoly. But now we are calling it intellectual property because intellectual monopoly, in neoliberal vocabulary, monopoly, is a really bad word. You don't like this word. So if you want to push your agenda, you want to call it a property because it sounds much nicer. Property is something you protect. Monopoly is something you fight, right? So, but anyway, it is intellectual monopoly. So, so this is artificial monopoly, and it exists for one reason only. It exists because it's a very useful tool to exert money from the unprivileged one to the privileged one. This is exactly how copyright is working. This is a tool to get money from the people who don't have the privileges and give it to the people who do have privileges. And most of the time we are on the receiving side. We are the ones to get the money. So we don't really, recognize this pattern. We don't like it. And we would rather, use different, terms and words to hide the fact that we are on the receiving end of the, I would say, not truly just privilege. Of course, copyright has its merits and it's useful, but it is what it is. And such a copyright as it exists now is not really beneficial to culture and education. And we know it from a lot of studies on public domain that copyright is the major obstacle in making knowledge available. And we know that after publication, the ability to access the work falls down, and it changes only after the work falls into the public domain. But that happens, unfortunately, 70 years after author's death in European Union, and if you are lucky and live in Canada, it's only 50 years. But it may soon change because there is there are those new treaties that the USA is pushing hard to make it 70 years in Canada as well. So so who benefits? This is the important question. Who benefits? And on the individual level, this is somewhat simple, and this is the benefits the people who control the work, and most of the times it's just publishers, because authors don't really have a power, to negotiate contracts most of the time. So the publishers and other intermediaries amass copyrights. But it's also interesting to look at this topic on the macroeconomic level, because it's important to understand what happens in copyright policy, and how this copyright and how this modern copyright is being established on a global scale. And it will be impossible to understand what's happening without, looking at the money. And the answer who benefit on the macroeconomic level is very simple. There are just two countries which export more intellectual property than import. Could you name those countries? Yes, exactly. Whoa, that's impressive. It's USA and Japan, and all the other countries, including European Union, are net importers. What that means? That means that the global copyright system is designed in a way which make us import basically fresh air, I mean nothing, and send out real money. That's the system. And if you look at how copyright treaties and economy treaties are being pushed, you can see the forces. There is TPP, trade agreement, which is just to be adopted in United States and all Pacific area, and it's designed to make the payments to the United States and Japan even bigger. That's it. By making copyright more strict, more repressive, and pushing people all over the world to abide to those laws who benefit someone else. This is exactly what happened in Poland in the past 10 years. This is something which happened when this is why I began this this speech about what we achieved. And this is very and the history is very ironic, because for example, the first international copyright convention was called Berne Convention, and who was pushing the Berne Convention in the end of the 19th century? It was France, which was a cultural capital back then, and France wanted to make sure that if someone is buying a book of Proust, is sending money to France. And the one and only country, which for decades didn't sign the Berne Convention was United States, because back then the United States was net importer of intellectual property, and because it was relying on the production of cultural production of United Kingdom, right? So the United States signed the Berne Convention very late, actually in 80s of the 20th century, because at this point they were net exporters with the Hollywood and so on. So. And it's very important also to note that the copyright will stay with us, and other intellectual monopolies, because also it's a very useful tool for corporate money laundering. Because what's the value of the work? If the system is artificial, there is no market to decide what's the value of the work. So the value of the work is what the owner says it's worth. I mean, the scientific magazine may be like $20 or maybe $20,000. What's the difference? Just the opinion of the publisher. And this is exactly what's happening. I mean, if we got too much money, in one packet, let's pay for a trademark. That's very easy. How much money we need to transfer? That's the price of the trademark, right? This is how it's happening. So the system is too useful for certain players, to be abolished. So it will stay with us. So this is important for us because we are fighting the results of a very long copyright battle, and especially for developing countries such as Poland and others. The system is getting worse and worse. It got worse with the TRIPS treaty, which introduced which was you need to sign a TRIPS if you want to join World Trade Organization, and obviously most of the countries want to join World Trade Organization because of the benefits. But if you want to reap off those benefits, you need to introduce a strong copyright into your legal system, and it introduced three step tests to many countries. And the three-step test is basically a tool to make sure that the scope of the educational exceptions will be very limited. So the countries are not free to say, okay, like anything can be used for educational purposes. And with three-step test, this close to impossible. And if you do, you need to pay. This is exactly how it works in Poland. So the TRIPS was a serious blow to all the countries which relied on fair use to make sure that their citizens benefit from access to works. And this oppressive system is being pushed in Africa, in Asia, everywhere. And most of the countries sign without really understanding what's going on, what's happening, what will be the result. So let's get back to open educational resources, or free educational resources, as I call it. Because I have a fear that, in a way, we are building a vast library of free books. We are making available, the vast amount of free knowledge for anyone to use and reuse. But in the same time, we may maybe taking a role of useful idiots, of the people who will be taken around to show that within this absurd, strict, restrictive copyright system, you can do something good, and just maybe we are making things worse, not better. And this is my fear, because I see the pattern in how businesses around distribution of information on the internet work. Basically, we got two economical models. I like to call them the Amazon model and the Facebook model. But the first one is distribution of works if you pay. If you register and log in and pay, and then you get access to works. This is how Amazon works, this is how Spotify works, and so on. And then there is the Facebook model or YouTube model, which is basically putting everything to access for free, but then you need to watch advertisements. And of course, in the real world, there always was there's always a mix of those two approaches. But those are the two basic economical models for making business on information on the internet. And all the other models are being pushed outside of the legal system. There is a very nice example. There was a Russian service called allofmp3.ru, which was running because of the wide scope of the fair use in Russian copyright law. It was legal, but when Russia wanted to join the WTO, World Trade Organization, there was only one demand from United States. It was close the all of mp3.ru, and it was legal. But anyway, the owners got sued. And what other models we have? We have Wikipedia, which is being run on donations, but all the costless models, like torrents, are being effectively delegalized. Why? Because the existence of technology which allows to access and distribute works without the need of the capital investment, which is without the need of running central servers, is the only thing which endangers the ability to make money on the internet in Amazon and Facebook model. Yeah, that's the reason why we got torrents delegalized, and the policymakers are much less strict on services. In Poland, we got Chomikuj, which is slowly legalizing itself. It's kind of mega upload. You know mega upload? It ceased to exist. The mega upload didn't want to adapt, didn't want to to start paying. This is why it was closed. Chomikuj started paying, so it wasn't closed. So they are much less strict on such services, much more strict on something entirely new. So we are always part of something bigger, and we need to think big scale to understand what role we play, in this global circus. So one way to think about our role is to learn from people who did it first. And the people who did it first were the free software people. They did it first, way ahead of us. And what we can learn from free software people? First of all, it's that licensing matters. Licensing matters. It's not that you may choose any license as long as it's it makes publishing on the internet possible. No, licensing matters. The free licenses are obviously way better to non-free licenses, and copyleft licenses are way better than non-copyleft licenses. Do you understand the difference between copyleft licenses and non-copyleft licenses? No. Okay. So the free licenses, are as defined by the Richard Stallman. Richard Stallman defined the free licenses as the licenses which allow for four things, which is to run the program. He was a free software guy. To run the program for any purpose, to study how the program works, to redistribute copies of the program, to improve the program, and distribute the copies. Okay, 4 freedoms of Stallman. So that's very interesting. Why? Because someone said that, okay, why redistribution and redistribution of improved versions are 2 different points, and the answer is because when you redistribute the program, you know, you are just, you know, you are not doing anything. You know, you got it, you send it, but if you adapt it and give to someone else, you are doing that not for yourself. You are doing that for someone. So this is where this is exactly the point at which community starts. And this definition was very influential in what we do, because if we read the Cape Town Declaration, there is a sentence that it's built on the belief that everyone should have the freedom to use, customize, improve, and redistribute educational resources. That's the Stallman definition, right? Written right into the text of the Cape Town Declaration. And then there is the definition of free cultural goods, which is the definition which for example, which Wikipedia uses, and a lot of free culture projects uses, and even Creative Commons uses. I mean, it was forced to use it in a way, which is the definition says freedom to use the work and enjoy the benefits of using it, the freedom to study the work, freedom to make and redistribute copies, freedom to make changes and improvements. That's the Stallman definition. So the lesson. So that's the definition of what free means. This is the reason why I say free educational resources, not open, because open means nothing, and the free, we got a definition, we got a standard. The free is solid, the open is vague, and so it's important to use the free licenses, and within free licenses you differentiate between copyleft and non-copyleft. The copyleft licenses are those when you adapt and redistribute the new version of a work has to be under the same license. So the non-copyleft licenses make it possible to appropriate the work. I mean, if you adapt it, you say, okay, the original work was free, but my version, my translation or something is not. So copyleft forbids that. And if we look at the software world, I mean, all the software which was under non-copyleft license now is effectively privatized and was appropriated, like macOS X, the Apple operation system that was built on the free non-copyleft version of Unix, and with Android, which was built on the free software under copyleft license, Google is trying hard, but it really cannot appropriate it. I mean, you got free versions of Android adapted, you know, and clean it, you know, from all this advertising and monitoring your device and so on, available on the net. It's not easy, but it's possible to install free version of Android because it was copylefted software. And I believe that the same logic works in the field of educational resources. If we produce resources under free, but I mean, if not free, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you are going to publish under non-free license, just, you know, use basic copyright. Don't try to pretend that you are open, really. Use free license. But if you publish under free license, use copyleft license, because this protects the right to use it and reuse it much better for the future. But so this is also why I was absolutely furious when I read the Paris Declaration, Paris Open Access Declaration, which says explicitly that the recommendation is to publish educational materials under CC BY license. I was furious because, first of all, why not? I mean, why not just do the same what everyone else is doing, which is take a definition of free, but if you choose one license, which is bad because you don't want to rely on one organization. I mean, the organization may be brilliant. We may love this organization, but you don't want to rely on one organization only. So if you choose one license, why non-copyleft? Because obviously the history taught us that the copyleft is working much better. So probably, again, the answer should be, we should look for an answer, who benefits? So who benefits from the, proliferation of works which are up to grab? So that's important because education is somehow in culture. In culture, free licenses will never work because you cannot substitute the works the way you can substitute the program. If program is doing something, you can take another program which is doing the same thing and you can substitute it. Culture doesn't work like that. In culture, if you want to read Harry Potter, you cannot read something else because the Harry Potter is, the book you want to read. There are no substitutes in culture. Education is something in between. In education, there are a lot of things which you can substitute, and this is why in some areas of the education, free licensing is working, but in other areas, it's not working at all, because those areas are where you cannot substitute the work with something else. So we know for sure that the free educational resources are not an answer to all our problems, that the copyright system needs to be amended to answer, to solve all our problems. But copyright system is not everything, because we are always part of something bigger, and I got 7 minutes. So, because there are other factors on how we can free the people from the oppression of the privatized ideas, and those factors have been put down by Ibn Moglen, the guy I began my journey with free educational resources in the past 10 years. In an article written in 2003, which is called .Communist Manifesto, which is, by the way, I really recommend reading it. It's an essay which also is, kind of poetry. He's like a very skilled writer, but he says and in this essay he says, okay, so what we need to free the people from the oppression of privatized ideas, and what we need is abolition of all forms of private property in ideas that we discussed already, withdrawal of all exclusive licenses, privileges and rights to use electromagnetic spectrum, nullification of all conveyances of permanent title to electromagnetic frequencies, development of electromagnetic spectrum infrastructure that implements every person's equal right to communicate. This is probably the next big thing, because we cannot communicate with others freely if we don't control our tools, our computers, our cell phones. This is done. We have free software for that. But also we cannot communicate with others freely if we do not have control of the network the communication goes through. because there will be gatekeepers, and who is a gatekeeper, who has a control of the flow of the information, gets the power and gets the money and so on. So we need the distributed control over the infrastructure, the communication infrastructure. This is not done. We are we are nowhere near. Then he says common social development of computer programs, check, done. Full respect for freedom of speech, including all forms of technical speech. This is important because free licenses and making works available is just part of the equation. I mean, in Poland we got some 17 different laws which regulate how people communicate with others. So in your countries it's probably similar. We need the legal protection for free speech. Then there is protection for the integrity of creative works. That's interesting, why he put it. Why he chose integrity over recognition of an author. Come on, this is the recognition of an author is the only widely accepted concept of the copyright, right? And so this is something I don't understand, why he has chosen integrity of creative work. Maybe because he's a friend of Richard Stallman, and Richard Stallman is very sensitive on this, that no one changes, a letter in what he writes. And the last, free and equal access to all publicly produced information and all educational material used in all branches of the public education system. This is what Ibn Moglen wrote in 2003. So in January, so it was even before the Paris the Paris publication. He's like so open educational resources are part of the knowledge economy and a part of something bigger. And thank you for being with me. And I hope that what I did was useful and will make you think on it. And if not, I'm sorry. I also would like to note that probably it's also a farewell speech, because I'm less and less involved with open educational resources. I stepped down from the coalition of Open Educational Resources board this year, and I didn't participate in elections. It's time for younger people to take over, and I will be concentrating on other things. And by other things, I probably mean that economy of immaterial goods is the field I would like to explore for the next couple of years. Also, the foundation is changing. We are getting bigger. We are just the Modern Poland Foundation is just joined the partnership with the EPF Foundation, which is a public sector information organization mainly. And we created something called Fundament. We want to work in a much less narrow scope, because the problems we are trying to solve are much more universal than only education. And so yeah, thank you. And I'm just in time. And if you want to ask me questions, there's like a break right now, right? So we can, if you would like to sacrifice the break to ask me questions, you are welcome.